Welcome everybody to the PFF College Football Podcast. I'm your host, Seth Galina. On today's episode, me and Anthony Treash are talking about the top 10 returning wide receivers in college football. Very interesting class. I don't think there's like the absolute out and out top 15 type of stud players like we saw in last year's draft class, or last month's draft class. But I think the group is super deep. And, you know, I've been saying this on this podcast, said another podcast, and so on and so forth. But we're seeing the pacification of America, and that you're going to see deep classes of wide receiver groups for the next 5-10 years as people ramp up their overall pass rates. And I don't think that's coming down anytime soon. It will eventually. The game will change eventually, but I think we're still in an upward trajectory of teams throwing the ball more and more. And if teams are throwing the ball more and more in the NFL and then college and then high school, well, you're going to get better receivers coming through the ranks because they're going to get more reps. Back in the day, running backs got all the reps because we ran the ball all the time. So they became the best players on the field. Now the receivers are the best players on the field because they're getting all the reps. They're getting all these 7-on-7 reps. They're getting all these private coaching reps. So, you know, that's where we are with receivers. So again, you know, top elite talent. I don't know if there's like a guy who will get picked in the top 15, probably when it's all said and done next year. But such a deep class and such an interesting group to talk about. So we talked about the receivers this week. Next week we're going to do the running backs, but also starting next week we're starting a series where we're talking about the kind of trends that are happening schematically throughout football. Talking offense to some offensive people, to some defensive people. Really interesting guests coming on the program to talk about what they're seeing in terms of, hey, what does football look like going into the 2021 season? So I think you guys will be interested in that. And yeah, so this is it. This is me and Tony talking about the receivers. All right, joining me now, continuing our series on the top 10 returning players, or the top returning players at every position on the football field, is Mr. Anthony Treash, PFF. Tony, what's going on?
Not much, man. How you doing?
Oh, great. It's a holiday. I just want to tell you guys.
Is it really?
I am working on Victoria Day. So taking time out of my busy schedule to talk to you, I mean, my non-busy schedule, I guess, today, to talk to you and have a good time talking wide receivers. So let's get straight into it. The number one guy on the PFF top 10 returning wide receiver list is honestly kind of an obvious choice. To me, it's a pretty big gap between him and some other guys, and that's Ohio State's Chris Olave. What do you think about him?
Yeah, I mean, Chris Olave. I mean, you know, I think
I don't know why I said it like that.
I'm not sure why you did either. I was just gonna ignore it and kind of ride with it. I'm not to be disrespectful. I had no idea it's a holiday up in Canada. I apologize for taking time out of your holiday. I'm going to read up more on Victoria Day because I honest to God have never heard of it until now. All
our holidays are based on like our colonial past. So you have like Victoria Day based on Queen Victoria.
So it's Quebec, like George Washington Day.
Yeah, exactly. But like the whole point, like George Washington is an American. Like Queen Victoria is not a Canadian. And then we have Saint Jean, which is like the Quebec holiday, the Quebec national holiday, which I assume is, it's like, that might be non-colonial to tell you the truth. Anyways, we're getting off topic. Chris Olave.
I know we're about to turn into a history podcast. No, but anyway, Chris Olave, this guy probably would have been a first round pick had he came out in the draft, which I was absolutely shocked that he did it. But I mean, it does kind of make sense because now he has a chance to be wide receiver 1, maybe a top 15, even top 10 pick with a fantastic year. I mean, this guy's one of the most refined route runners in all of college football. And you can see that with most Ohio State receivers. Brian Hartline, I think, is one of the most underrated position coaches in the entire country. That dude just breeds route runners out there at Ohio State. Chris Olave is one of them here too. I mean, he's just been lights out against single coverage. The only thing that I wish, the offense kind of limits this opportunity too, but I wish, he would be a little bit better after the catch too when he does have that opportunity.
Okay.
It's really not all that great.
I kind of wrote this down, but my thing with that is like, well, all his routes are comebacks and outs and like posts. Yeah. So it's like but when he does run something over the middle of the field where there's a catch and run opportunity, you see it. You see that he can do it. He just doesn't have the opportunity, like you said.
Yeah, and like I was saying, it is offense by design. Maybe I need to go back and look at him because I just didn't really see it like too much to be like, oh damn, this guy can create yards after the catch. It's not like a great strength of his, but it's nothing that I'm really concerned about at all whatsoever. He does exactly what this offense needs him to do, and at the next level, I don't think it's going to be a hindrance. But again, this list is not talking about pro potential at all whatsoever. And then two, this was tough because I had Garrett Wilson there, his teammate. This is hands down the best, 1-2 wide receiver duo in all of college football. I think I ended up putting Olave ahead of Garrett Wilson just because, we've seen him do it against, press man coverage on the outside more than Garrett Wilson has. That's not to say Garrett Wilson can't do it. We just haven't seen him do it at the rate Chris Olave has. Now, this year, though, we're going to see that. We're going to get more opportunities of Garrett Wilson on the outside. That dude's going to kill it. He's been working mostly against in the slot, frequently finding the soft spots against zone coverage. When he does see single coverage, though, that guy just absolutely tore it up. And so I want to do 1A, 1B, but I went ahead with number 1, number 2. And then they also have another sleeper who we'll talk about later that honestly, he might be the best one of the bunch. He really might be in the long term. This guy's, but we'll talk more about him later.
If you had to pick one, like aesthetically, like what? Because they're two very different receivers. Not just in where they play, like you said, Wilson playing in the slot and Olave outside, but like aesthetically, like who is your preferred receiver? Like what type of receiver do you just like? Regardless of skill or anything like that, like what type of like play style and stuff do you like? Like who's your number one in that sense?
Like out of Olave and Garrett Wilson?
Yeah, out of those two.
Oof, this one's tough. I mean, I would probably say Chris Olave, just because I like to see those reps against single coverage. Now Garrett Wilson too. I think he's a little bit more gifted athletically, which is always appealing. Yeah. I mean, there's been a few. He's probably had more routes where you're just kind of like, oh shit, like that was pretty nice than probably Chris Olave has. But I don't know. That's a tough question. What about you?
I think
your favorite.
Yeah, I think Olave too. I just like the smoothness in his game. Like there's no false steps ever, and it's almost like he's obviously fast. But in a sense, it doesn't show up on tape because he's so smooth, and we're so used to fast players being like quick twitch guys, and so he's fast, but everything's so smooth that you don't even see him get faster. Like on a post route, he's just burning guys, and you don't even realize he's doing it, which is so cool to watch. And like I said, he's just fast. His footwork is impeccable. I was trying, like, you look at the difference, and they are, like I said, they're two aesthetically very different players. Wilson is, maybe a better pro prospect. Like, I'm not ready to say that yet, but he could be. Lankier,
I mean, that's your guy, Mike. He likes Garrett Wilson better. I mean, he's been on this train since like his first game of college football.
Yeah, he looks more like an NFL receiver in the way that he runs his routes. He snaps off routes. He's got that long-legged, break point when he gets them like a 6-yard hitch or something like that. Compared to Wilson, compared to Olave, it's a little more smoother. And then you saw some stuff where because he's in the slot, he's running those routes over the middle of the field that we didn't see a lot from Chris Olave on the outside, where he's running the comebacks, the outs and stuff like that. Where you saw some of that, like everyone's doing it now, but like that kind of like Justin Jefferson, the way he's able to get on those over routes, those like where he's able to stutter step and chair step to get across the field. That was really, I mean, it was special. He was really good. So yeah, I think it's Olave, but like I think maybe pro prospect, we can say Wilson is. I don't want to say ahead, but like you can make the case for either of them. All right, let's move off Ohio State. Though I will say it was fun to rewatch Ohio State's film, to rewatch Justin Fields, to tell you the truth. Because, you look at all these completions they're on the money. All these targets are on the money for those two receivers. All right, anyways, let's get to number 3. Comeback player at Clemson, Justin Ross, missed 2020. We love him in 2018, 2019. Excited to see him back in 2021. What are your thoughts on Justin Ross?
Yeah, man. I mean, it's great that he's actually able to come back there, just because for a minute it was like, is this guy's career in jeopardy? I mean, the guy had a serious fusion surgery, but he looks like he's good to rock for this season if he can stay healthy. I mean, this is exactly who, Trevor Lawrence needed last season, just because his receiving unit really wasn't up to Clemson standards. I would say there was injuries across, even with Justin Ross, Joe Ngata, who, I would even label as a sleeper. I was probably going to bring him up later, but I'm going to do it now because I'm a big Joe Ngata fan. But anyway, Justin Ross, this guy is a vertical weapon. I mean, 6'4", big body guy, just fantastic in contested situations. But he just wins with his physicality. I mean, we saw early on in his career as a true freshman. I wish they would have got him last year. I think it would have been such a huge asset to that offense. But our guy DJ gets him. And I think we're going to see probably they might have the best quarterback wide receiver connection in all of college football. It would not surprise me in the slightest bit. It also depends on CJ Stroud. But I think that's going to be a very potent duo. And I think that's kind of what's going to lead Clemson to the college football playoff in 2021.
Yeah, like you said, the contested catch is really where he stands out because you don't see a lot of – they did throw a lot of screens to him, but you don't see a lot of like yak, like a Rondale Moore or something like that, or other people like that. But he just goes up and gets balls, man. From day one, he was just going up, and his body control is stunning. You remember the one in the back of the end zone versus Louisville at the end of a half, I believe. It's wild. I wonder if they're going to expand the route package for him. I think he probably can handle it. But he is coming back after a pretty serious injury. So maybe it's just sticking to outside vertical stuff and seeing if we can come back and slowly bring him along. Now it's going to fit what I think you can do with DJ with that arm talent at the quarterback position. So I'm excited. Like you said, it really could be the number one QB receiver duo if we are getting the Justin Ross from 2018 to 2019. He was one of the best true freshmen in 2018 that season. So yeah, I'm excited to see him back. All right, let's go to our first pick from the SEC. I don't know if a lot of people know about this guy, but Traelin Burks from Arkansas is let me make sure I have the rankings right. Is the number 4 guy on the PFF top 10 returning receiver list. Playing in a interesting offense, right? The Kendall Briles offense, a lot of outside routes for the whole team. But then you saw, because he's so good, they were able to use him on a lot of different routes that you maybe hadn't seen, big time receivers run in this type of offense. And he just stood out like that.
Yeah, and I should say George Pickens was number 4, but since he tore his ACL, unfortunately, he's at least going to miss the entire regular season. Yeah. So I just went ahead and cut him from this ranking. Hopefully, if they make a postseason run, he's able to return. But he definitely would have been number 4 here, the top SEC guy. But it's Traelin Burks since he's hurt. Talk about a guy that kind of did have, a big difference in play from 2019 to 2020. In 2019, dude was a big play threat. He was utilized solely as a deep threat. Had some success, but you're going to get that boomer bust nature. And he did get to add some routes to his route package. They expanded that for him just a little bit in this offense. He really did still make some plays vertically too. But he was just a more well-rounded receiver. He improved his receiving grade, I think almost 20 grading points, just about 1 point shy of that elite mark, which we call the 90.0 territory. He has the size, physicality, definitely has the speed too. Can generate yards after the catch, but over the last couple of seasons, he's made some of the most, biggest deep plays in all of college football. He has 17 deep receptions in that span, 10th most among all Power 5 receivers. I think the big, he did that as an underclassman too, which is nothing short of exceptional. I think the big question mark now is, how's the ecosystem around him going to be this year? That's the concerning part there at Arkansas. I wish he would be playing with one of these better quarterbacks. that we could get, better opportunity for. And then I'm going to be talking about this one guy who I messaged you about earlier that just pisses me off so much because he has such a bad quarterback that he could be a top 10 caliber receiver. Going off on a tangent there, but Traelin Burks, I wouldn't be surprised if we see that production kind of take a step back, but I wouldn't question his ability because he more than proved it this past season that he's a top receiver in college football.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good point about the ecosystem in Arkansas, because when you see a lot of his plays, it's like, I don't know, maybe I should probably look this up, but like, I don't know if you felt this way. A lot of stuff was on broken plays, Felipe Franks outside the pocket and stuff like that, where like he shows he's a great receiver, but you want to see more in the design of the play, right? Catches in the design of the play where you can go and get yak, where you can go and beat your DB and get the ball like on time. And I don't know, didn't see it with Felipe Franks that much. I don't know if KJ Jefferson, if he's going to be the starter, is going to be better than, I don't know, a lot of people like, yeah, KJ, Felipe Franks, went to the Senior Bowl and like, people talked about him as a draftable player, but like, wasn't that good. And so but with that said, it's like, I don't even know if KJ Jefferson is going to be better. He played all right in the one game we saw him versus Missouri. But, for Burks to be the player that I think we all think he can be, like you said, the ecosystem has to be better. All right, let's move to the Big 12. And Marvin Mims as our number 5 guy. Out of nowhere, I think both of us were expecting a big year out of Charleston Rambo. We didn't get that in 2020. We might get it in 2021 at Miami. But instead, we get Marvin Mims.
Yeah, and, he wasn't the first, second, or even third option in the offense, but he was by far the most productive. He made the most of his opportunities more than anybody. And even, for a true freshman, he had really absurd production on a per route basis. And he had an 89.1 receiving grade, over 4 yards per route run, which again, top 10 marks. You don't really see that often from, a true freshman. And, he does have pretty good body control, good speed, can get open downfield. Some of his production was schemed, I will say. I mean, it's the Oklahoma offense, Lincoln Riley. I mean, you look at it, it was deep crossers. He made, he did his stuff there. He did, kind of help out Spencer Rattler too on some broken plays, did find a way to get open a few different times, like we were just talking about. He was the more difficult one to rank just because of the, while he did have good production, made the most of what he did. Just, some of his big moments, it was pretty schemed up. He didn't really have to do much. And so that's why I'm kind of curious to see, how his career is going to continue here. But I don't think and I'm not going to question him that, ended up becoming a top tier receiver in college football. I mean, that's why I placed him here at number 5. I think he's going to have, a strong career, at least a strong 2022 or 2021 rather, with Spencer Rattler as a quarterback. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, I mean, my big note for him was schemed up. Like, is everything that he did schemed up? There wasn't a lot of like routes you would like to see like big time receivers run. Now, I understand it's college football and different than the NFL. But yeah, so like you said, the deep over concept, the Y cross, and then they have their like, I think Lincoln Riley calls it a sting concept, where they're really trying to hide him underneath on like a shallow drag, and then he wheels up the field. Got open a lot on those type of plays. Now, with that said, did he have the catch of the year last year against Oklahoma State? Like, maybe. Like, that was a disgusting play. And you can see the potential is there. And I think, he'll continue to get some schemed open looks, but now being the number 1 receiver, that might be a little harder. So I think it's a big year for him, but you talk about ecosystems. Well, who has a better ecosystem, as a receiver than playing in Lincoln Riley's system with Spencer Rattler as a quarterback? So I'm excited to see him continue his career. I think there's going to be big things from him. All right, next on the list, going back to the ACC, Jakari Berson. He's a dude now. I like this guy. You talk about, we talked earlier about Chris Olave not really showing off the yak skills. And I think that's true with some of the guys we mentioned already. That is not a problem with Roberson. He is so good with the ball in his hands. Oh, one of the points I wanted to make earlier, just about the whole class of receivers that that I was thinking about was, I talk a lot about how the quarterbacks are just better. Just the level of play just of the average quarterback is better than it was 10 years ago, 20 years ago, whatever, because of all the training they get, right? And, who is catching all these balls from quarterbacks getting all the private training? Well, it's got to have someone to catch these receivers. And the level of play of the receiver has gone up exponentially as well, getting all the reps in 7-on-7, all the all those circuits, and then just high schools throwing the football more and more and more. And what you see is just unbelievable hands catchers. Like no one's waiting for, I'm not that old, but I'm old enough to remember when, there would be a difference. Like, oh, this guy's a hands catcher. This guy's not a hands catcher. And it's like all of these guys just go out and snag balls away from their body, and they don't let balls come into their chest. I bring this up with Roberson because I did see a couple where he let balls come to his chest, but generally he's a really good hands catcher. Like all of this group is just tremendous hands catchers. So anyways, Jakari Robinson, Wake Forest, playing in that funky ass offense. But you see just a lot of great ability after the catch. And I'm a big fan of his, honestly.
I can tell. I was honestly kind of surprised. That's for sure. I know some others at PFF aren't as high on Roberson as I was. So but where would you place him here? Do you agree with the 6, or do you think he should be higher?
Yeah, I would. So for me, like, he could be above Burks and above Mims for me. Like, I still like Ross Wilson and Olave. But yeah, I could see him. I could see him as a top 4. But I think this is a good. I think this is a good ranking for him. Top 10 for sure.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, undoubtedly. I mean, the guy was the second highest graded wide receiver in all of college football last year. And it just kind of was like swept under the rug. Like, oh, who's this guy? Wake Forest, get him out of here. But I mean, like you said, he was good after the catch, a very good after the catch guy, averaged over 7.5 yards after the catch, working against zone too. I mean, that's where I kind of thought he did his best work. I think, he kind of falls in that Garrett Wilson boat where maybe I'm not as high on him because I would have liked to have seen him, I would love to see him work on the outside more, and face those opportunities against one-on-ones. But, I think he has the ability. He's certainly flashed it. And I think, I don't know if I'll go as high as Burks. Burks is my guy, or Mims, but I agree with you. I mean, this guy's easily a top 10 guy. That's why I have him here at number 6.
All right, number 7. First group of 5 player, Khalil Shakir from Boise State. This is really stupid because he reminds me of Chris Olave, but it's like because they wear the same number. They both wear number 2. Back-to-back years of really strong grading, and I think, again, going back to the ecosystem thing, which we kind of don't have a choice but to talk about when we talk about receivers, is their quarterback situation wasn't bad. Like, it's not Arkansas level, but you have a lot of different players throwing at him. So hopefully if it kind of settles down, they figure out who is going to be the quarterback this year. I'm not really sure if it's going to be, they get Jack Sears, who had a really good one game basically, compared to Bachmeier, who's been in the system for a few years, starting as a true freshman. So hopefully they can just settle it, whoever ends up being the quarterback, and then we can see some even better play from Khalil Shakir, who does everything. Honestly, like, he's just a very well-rounded receiver. And big fan of him.
Yeah, I mean, that's well said right there. I should have mentioned that in the article too. Just, like last year, the quarterback situation, I mean, it was constantly back and forth. Injuries got in the way early on with COVID too. I mean, it was just kind of a mess there. I mean, it was a kind of a good mess to have because they're both good quarterbacks. Yeah. But I mean, ideally, you want one guy in there. You don't want a 2 quarterback system. They weren't trying to do it. Inadvertently, it turned into one. They're not trying to do what Arkansas State did, which was one of the worst things I've ever seen in my life. But anyway, Khalil Shakir is a top 10 wide receiver in college football. And speaking of guys, we wanted to see go and get some reps on the outside. Khalil Shakir did make that move this past season. 2019 worked mostly from the slot, graded out exceptionally well, had good production. Wanted to see him go out wide. He did that in 2020. His production just got even better. I mean, it was just as good. 88.8 receiving grade, a little bit better than what he had in 2019. And he did see some reps in the slot too. And what's most impressive is that he was just incredibly productive wherever he was out on the field. Whatever role you really gave him, he was productive. I mean, he was right there with Devonta Smith and Elijah Moore as the only FBS wide receivers with more than 3.2 yards per route run both in the slot and out wide. Some pretty uncommon numbers right there. And 2 guys that just got drafted pretty early in this most recent draft. So I think he's hands down the best group of 5 wide receiver. And, hopefully they can get that, offense kind of stabilized and in a good, ecosystem around him. Because, this guy's the real deal. I think we're going to be talking about him all throughout the season. And I wouldn't be surprised if he's up for some major awards by the end of the year.
DraftKings Sportsbook is giving you a chance to lower the over-under on a featured playoff game. That's probably the only way I would ever win a bet. All players who place a bet on the featured basketball game will have a hand in lowering the over-under on the game. That's right. For every 1,500 players who bet the over on the select game, the over-under will drop by 1 point. DraftKings is safe and secure and reliable, so you can deposit and withdraw your funds at your convenience. Download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use promo code PFF when you sign up to hammer the over. For every 1,500 people that bet the over in the featured game, the line will decrease by 1 point. Yes, this is your chance to improve the odds of the over hitting. So tell your friends and family this is a team effort. Hammer the over and improve your odds of doubling your money. That's promo code PFF for a limited time only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Must be 21 or older. New Jersey, Indiana, Pennsylvania only. Restrictions apply. Max $25 wager, 1 per customer. Offer ends May 23rd, 2021. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER or in Indiana, 1-800-9-WITH-IT. In these uncertain times, life is full of questions like, when should I start thinking about life insurance? But however difficult these questions may be, Western and Southern can help you answer them. Backed by over 130 years of experience, together we can look ahead to leave the unknown behind. Western and Southern Financial Group, life insurance, retirement, and investments. Compensated endorser, products issued by member companies of Western and Southern Financial Group, Cincinnati, Ohio. I want you guys to remember that if you are listening to this PFF podcast, we have other great podcasts on our PFF podcast network, which covers, of course, the NFL, fantasy football, and this show, college. So you can recap the NFL draft with PFF Mike and PFF Austin on 2-for-1 drafts. Probably one of the best podcasts out there, in my opinion. You can check out Ian Hardett's fantasy football podcast and get a leg up on your league. I'm going to need it next year because I finished very poorly last season in fantasy football. And get all your 2021 betting content with the PFF forecast, another great podcast. So a lot of podcasts on the network. Make sure you tune into all of them. Yeah, he's another guy who had some really nice yak plays on his tape. There's one where he scores a touchdown. Oh man, I forget who. They were playing against a team with a white jersey. But just another guy who just you love that he goes from the slot to the X, kind of like Jamar Chase went 2018 to 2019, and you saw some just elite play from both positions. So I'm excited for him. Next on the list.
Can we put that on a quote graphic? Khalil Shakir is the next Jamar Chase.
Khalil Shakir is the best deep threat of all time.
Might be.
All right. Next is David Bell from Purdue. To me, he's like I think he's just like my favorite aesthetically. I don't know why. Love a guy with a single digit. Wears number 3. Love the jerseys. Like the all blacks are really nice. He's another guy.
I think they're disgusting. I hate the jerseys so much.
Maybe it's because I'm a Saints fan. Maybe that's why.
It probably is. And Drew Brees went there.
Yeah, Drew Brees went there. I don't know why. I just like them overall. You saw some the ability to run a post and burn the guy, and also to like come underneath and make some plays. So just a fan. I don't know what else to say. He's obviously a really good receiver. In the shadow of Rondale Moore. What are your thoughts on Bell overall? And ask you what I'm going to ask you.
Yeah, I love David Bell. I know some other guys at PFF. I think I was talking with Austin about this the other day, and he's like, I really didn't like David Bell. I think it was David Bell. I could be wrong. But anyway, the body control he has is it's fantastic. The guy's, he can body guys in tight coverage too. I mean, what he did as an underclassman these last couple of years has been nothing short of exceptional. Contested catch monster. There was a play, I think it was against Indiana maybe in 2019, when he fell down along his route and he still popped up and made like an unbelievable grab. I mean, that's just who David Bell is. I mean, even that year he torched Tywin Mullen. That's literally the only bad game you're going to find on Tywin Mullen, who's a top 10 cornerback in all of college football, probably going to be a highly coveted draft pick next April. That's only his bad game is against David Bell. I think he's I don't want to call him a one-trick pony. He's not a separation getter at all. He's very limited in that regard. But in college football, you're going to get some of these smaller defensive backs. They're not all going to be NFL caliber corners. You can get away with that if you have an accurate quarterback that understands your leverage and ball placement. And David Bell, he can snag those off target throws too. I mean, it's going to work. But anyway, what were you going to say?
Well, okay, the first thing, again, I'll say it again, quarterback situation. We don't know much about it right now. We don't know who the starter is going to be. Could be Plummer, could be O'Connell. I think they have a transfer coming in. I don't remember who now. So like again, don't know the quarterback situation. That was always a problem with Purdue the past couple of years. Even though I like what Jeff Braun does on offense, and obviously they've had the receivers, they just haven't had the quarterback consistency. So my question is, without Rondale Moore there, do we see a guy who's going to be fed a lot more targets, and could he go above Rondale where Rondale Moore went in the draft next year?
Ooh, I don't think so. I don't know. I think Milton Wright is another big breakout candidate on Purdue. He's a 6'3" receiver. He's a 4-star recruit. He actually chose Purdue over Alabama. God knows why, but he did. And when Rondale was out early on this past season, he was kind of also right there with David Bell in targets. And the dude, he performed exceptionally well. He had a 73 receiving grade, just north of it, 2.3 yards per route run in those 3 games without Rondale Moore. So I think he's probably going to get fed a good amount, but I think David Bell's probably going to be more of a featured guy. He does have some experience since Rondale's been out over the last couple of years, but I don't think his target share is going to go up a little, too much. I think, as far as like projecting him to the NFL, I just think, he's just not, the separation ability is just not there. It's not at all. So I don't think he will be, but at the end of the day, some of the stuff that he can do, some of the catches he can make because of that body control, if he just continues to show some polish, it wouldn't surprise me. But I'd say right now, I think there's just a little bit too much to work on to get above Rondale.
All right, we're sticking in the Big Ten for, what are we at, number 9? That's Fry Fogle from Indiana. He's a guy who, and you wrote it in the article, just like, hey, you're going to go up and get balls. Like, that's what you are right now, is like, there's not a very extensive route tree. You're just going to go up and get balls. And he went up and got a lot of balls. He's not, it's one of those things where like, you feel like there needs to be, like, for the Indiana offense, we're just talking about the Indiana offense now rather than just the receiver, but like, you feel like that offense needs more players. Like, you can't, I don't know how much you can rely on a Fry Fogle, even though he is a very good receiver. I don't know what your thoughts are on that. Like, you're going to need, like you talked about Peyton Hendershot becoming a good player again. You're going to need that. You're going to need maybe a guy in the slot who can make some plays for them to help that Indiana offense along.
Yeah, for sure. And, I'm not afraid to call Fry Fogle a one-trick pony, because he definitely is. I mean, he's just a back shoulder weapon, 100%. And, I was clipping the heat map route charts that we're going to have in the PFF College magazine. He's the top featured receiver for Indiana. And look at his heat map. It's honestly comical, if I recall correctly, because, I mean, you just see it. I mean, it's just go balls the entire way through. I mean, but he's pretty damn good at him if he's in a contested opportunity downfield. I mean, he's going to bully some guys. He pushed around Shad Wade. He gave him his lunch money, or he took his lunch money from him and pushed him on the ground and tanked his draft stock. And he had the highest receiving grade on contested targets in the Power 5 this past season. I don't think I'm as high on Fry Fogle as I think the broader consensus. I'm honestly quite shocked to hear how many people think, I saw a few different places he was a top 3 wide receiver returning in college football, and I was kind of shocked by that. Or even some people are saying he has a chance to be wide receiver 1 off the board, next April. I just can't really see it.
Yeah, but I'm not ready to say that yet.
Yeah, but I mean, he's a good receiver. He needs complementary pieces. I just don't think the offense can be filtered through him. Hopefully, he proves me wrong. We still think highly of him. I mean,
yeah,
hell,
sure.
he's a top 10 receiver in college football on this list. But I just don't think I think he is a little bit too limited to really lean on in that sense.
Yeah, I think we're both on the same page there. All right, number 10 is Toronto Mans, Brampton Mans. John Michie, who, came out of nowhere, honestly, when Jalen Waddle got injured last season. We're talking about Alabama receiver John Michie, and he was awesome. I mean, that's really what it got. He was awesome. And I think here's a guy where you could say by the end of the season he was a top 5 receiver in the country. Does everything right, does everything well, can beat you over the top, can beat you with this is a team that you're going to see all these in-breaking routes where you're going to have to snap off a route and get separation. He did it a lot. So yeah, I think this is a guy, I'm a little biased, the Canadian, he's a Canadian, good old Canadian boy, but I like him a lot, man.
So you think he's top 5?
I think by the end of the season, he's going to be top 5. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I could see that too. Originally, so we published this early on a few months ago, just a little teaser for, broader position groups. So we broke up this time around offensive, defensive line, secondary, stuff like that, which we'll talk about later. But with George Pickens there at number 4, John Michie originally didn't make the top 10. He was pretty pissed, come to find out. He was not too happy. So hopefully I won him over. I right from the get-go, I was like, man, this guy's 11. I really want him on the top 10, but I just don't think I can do it. But, he's a very talented guy, like you said. I mean, he's a vertical weapon. I mean, he has that second gear to get on top of defensive backs. I thought he handled contact pretty well, a lot better than I was expecting. I mean, he got off press exceptionally well. Yeah. I mean, he actually had – I was shocked. I kept thinking I was filtering this wrong in PFF Ultimate, which, again – sorry, guys, just me and Seth can look at it. He had just over 3.5 yards per route run against press coverage in 2020, which was the 5th most we've ever seen from a Power 5 wide receiver in the last 5 years. I mean, this guy can do it. I mean, I'm expecting a big junior year breakout. I think, him being the focal point, I think he will. He has a good chance to get into that top 5. I would say I'd be more shocked if he fell out of the top 10 than if he didn't get into the top 5, I think we're all kind of expecting him to get there. And also, too, I'm interested to see what his quarterback does. Alabama has a lot of talented players, but there are still some question marks. And that's wide receiver 2. It's not really, well-defined, but I'm sure, there's going to be some highly ranked recruit that just comes out of nowhere and lights it up. I mean, it's going to happen. Bryce Young's going to be the next star. Actually, don't quote me on that. I don't know. I'm just saying that just seems to be what happens.
No, we can quote you positively. There's nothing wrong with that. Like, we're good. It's when you slander Hall of Famers that there's issues.
It was taken out of context. I said might be not. I love Randall Moss. I love him. I think he's an NFL all-time history. It's one of the best to ever do it. At the end, I do got to say this. This is a college podcast. We're talking NFL. Tyreek Hill, by the end of his career, if he sustains this level of volume, agree. He might be. And I was taken out of context there. But I do love Randy Moss. Bryce Young, he might be, the emerging SEC star. But we'll see. I haven't been – we've only seen him take a few dropbacks in garbage time. But, we haven't really seen enough to make that definitive assumption.
And like we said last week, no more definitive assumptions off very little dropbacks.
Yes, small samples.
Yeah. So, anyways, a big fan of John Michie. I was thinking, man, I think there is some bias that pumps up these players once they put on the in your minds once you put on the Alabama jersey, because you were like, oh, who's the wide receiver 2? And I was like, two guys, but the first thing I thought was the Slade Bolden, who probably isn't a wide receiver 2, but just he looks so good. He's catching balls in that Alabama offense, and he looks amazing. Though, who the real wide receiver 2 is on that team is the tight end whose name I forgot. Forrestall? No, not Forrestall. Man, I forgot his name. Anyways, he's going to be nasty. He's like, when he's hybrid tight end receivers, like doesn't really called a tight end, but probably a receiver. He might have a good season. I think I'll take some heat off of John Michie. So I'm excited to see how those two guys and just the offense in general looks with a different type of quarterback in there than Mac Jones with Bryce Young. All right, so that's the top 10. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't want to interrupt, but Billingsley.
Billingsley, yeah.
Right, yeah, number 19, yeah. I mean, yeah, he's like
he's
mid-year. Nasty. Yeah, mid-year he kind of popped up, and then it was actually funny. I was watching the playoff with some of the guys, and I think Ben Lindsay just randomly threw a prop or something like that on a touchdown on Jaleel Billingsley, and it was out of nowhere. The dude's not productive at all, and then he hit it. But yeah, I think he does have some real deal skills in there. We saw that kind of mid-year pop up.
All right, so that's the top 10. And now we're going to get into some sleeper picks. I only have one sleeper pick. You have a few, so let's start with one from you. Who's a big-time sleeper for you?
Yeah, in the article, I put Jalen Tolbert, a guy from South Alabama. There's some interesting people on the South Alabama team, too. Keith Galliman, the safety. We've talked ad nauseum about that defensive coordinator. I mean, this is going to be an interesting team to keep an eye on. But Jalen Tolbert, the dude's battled some really piss-poor quarterback play. I mean, really bad quarterback play.
Do you know who South Alabama's quarterback is?
Who, right now?
Yeah.
Not off the top of my head, I forget.
I believe it is Jake Bentley.
Is it really going to be Jake Bentley?
That's right. Transferred there.
That's right. Oh, yeah. All right. I will say this. I ran into someone that was in the Pac-12 conference who worked on the defensive side of the ball. They said Jake Bentley was one of the worst quarterbacks that they witnessed come out of that conference for quite some time. You could see it in his past career, so it doesn't surprise me. But I think in the group of five, maybe he can hang on to it. But anyway, he's going to have this massive catch radius, dude with good ball skills to throw to deep downfield. He's just a big play threat that I think, he could challenge Khalil Shakir for the top group of five receiver. I don't think he's going to catch him, but I think he's a clear, comfortable number 2 there.
Yeah, with Bentley, people were mad that I ranked like the transfer quarterbacks last season when he went from South Carolina to Utah, and I think I had him unranked, like outside of the top 5. And people were not happy with that. And I think, you're hoping for him. Now you're at the G5 level, you're in the Sun Belt. The level of play matches where he is as a quarterback, and I think you can have some good play out of him. And like you said, he's gonna have a really good receiver with him and a good team. Like again, Kane Womack, we're big fans of him, so hopefully they have a big season there in Mobile. All right, another sleeper for you.
But yeah, that's so funny. I forgot about that. Now I'm yeah. All right, I'm not going to dog on him anymore. I would say Jackson Smith in Jigba. I think that's how you pronounce it. The third wide receiver for Ohio State. This guy, man, he's got the tools, the short area quickness. I mean, the ball skills. He had one of the best touchdowns that we saw in college football last season. In his first year there, former 5-star recruit, highly coveted. This guy is a dog. He's going to be something special, and I think I'm not going to make a declaration now off of a small sample. We just got them talking about this. I'm not going to get jazzed up.
No, okay, wait though, because small sample receiver stuff is fine. Because I think so.
You could be wrong about this,
but I think you can extrapolate from small sample non quarterback positions.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. Maybe we need to start tracking this. Like guys we get excited about on small samples, and then we can do some data studies for 10 years down the road. Like, hey, this position did not really work out for us, these traits, whatever, so on. But anyway, this guy, he only ran I think he ran exactly 69 routes as a true freshman in 2020. Like I said, that touchdown, he has all the traits. I think he's going to be an absolute stud, going to have an increased role there. Probably going to be working mostly in the slot. But that wide receiver trio, man, that's dangerous. And speaking of, I'm going to go ahead and throw out another sleeper just because I can. Sorry. It's loaded wide receiver units. Drake London, USC, almost cracked the list.
Of course.
Yeah, not playing basketball anymore, but he's going to be the guy in that USC offense. But that receiving unit too at USC, it's just loaded with potential. There's so many guys, toolsy guys that just really haven't proven it. But I think Drake London's going to emerge as the guy there.
Okay, so my sleeper pick, going to my hometown LSU Tigers, Keishawn Butte. I'm not even sure how to pronounce it. He put on that number 1 jersey last year, played X. He looked like Jamar Chase, man. And you saw, like, he was something, man. He was something. He has a chance. Another guy, like I said, about Michie, to be, by the end of the season, a guy we're talking about in the top 10. Another good receiving unit, too, LSU brings back. And I think he's a guy who we're going to talk about a lot next year. He made plays after the catch, breaking tackles, yards, big time yards after catch. Like, he's my favorite receiver. And I think he will end up definitely in the top 10 and maybe in the top 5. That's my sleeper, 100%. Like, he is so good, man. And they're bringing back some of the people who made 2019 a possibility. He wears number 1. Boy, good player, really good player. You have another sleeper?
Yeah, I mean, he was another one, man, where I struggled with leaving him off the list just because, like, I feel like like this wide receiver group compared to like past years, like the top of it's not as so like this guy's a rare elite talent. Like I thought Devonta Smith and Jalen Waddle before the season, those were elite players. Jamar Chase, you look at him and say this guy's a rare player. Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, they're great. Justin Ross too, but I wouldn't call them like these rare talents that are gonna maybe be like a Heisman level season like Devonta Smith just had.
Yeah.
But yeah, there is a few sleepers. There's one I had down here. I gotta remember it. Oh yeah, Raheem Jarrett, wide receiver, Maryland, was supposed to go to your LSU Tigers.
Yeah,
and then
that's a good one, man. That's a good one. 5-star player, I believe.
Yeah, and Stephon Diggs called your boy up and said, "Hey, don't go play for Coach O in LSU. Come play for the Terps." He went to Maryland, and I think they played Penn State. It was one of his 4 games of the year. The dude just went ballistic. He had 2 40-plus yard touchdowns on the year. I think he was incredibly productive in that 4-game stretch. I think he's probably going to emerge as the top guy. Honestly, Maryland's got some sneaky talent.
Yeah, man. They do. I was about to say it.
Our guy, Baby Tua, he's the real deal. And, Nick Cross, the safety, been watching him lately. He's very talented too. I left him off the top 10 safeties list, but he was probably the 11 there, but we'll talk more about that later. But, they have some, Tarheeb Still. I'm going to say his name too. No one knows who the hell he is, but he was very good in the slot for him the last couple games of the year. If Baby Tua Talia can kind of emerge like we think he can, man.
Yeah, no, I mean,
that's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say.
That's the sleeper team. They're not like the sleeper team to like win the Big Ten. Like I don't think that's gonna happen. But they're a sleeper team to have a good season. You know what I mean? Like better season than they had last year, and they're gonna have a good passing offense. 2 guys that I really liked watching last year, and one of them or both of them are gonna have to step up with the loss of the aforementioned George Pickens is Karis Jackson and Jermaine Burton. Like I like those 2, man. They're young players. I think if Pickens comes back, we're talking about Georgia as a top 5 receiving group in the country. And I mean, I don't know much about them, honestly, but I just really like both of them. Didn't grade very high. Burton 62, Jackson 70.6. Not great, but yeah, I'm a big fan of both of them.
Yeah, Dominique Blaylock too. He's returning back from injury towards ACL. Was all of 2020, but in 2019 he really flashed it. I mean, he showcased that he could be a top tier player. But also kind of depends on JT Daniels, what kind of quarterback he is. We've talked ad nauseum about him. Another breakout that comes to mind. This is kind of like my last consensus, conviction one. Our team, Tcu Horned Frogs. So we've been kind of critical of Max Duggan in the past. But, this is another team. This is like the Maryland of the Big 12, right? Yeah, I think there is enough talent on this team where they can make some noise, but it kind of depends on the quarterback. But anyway, Quentin Johnson, 2024 star recruit, he's going to be – I think he's a big breakout candidate. He's 6'4", 193 pounds, pretty lanky, but he's just a monster to defend just because of his size. He's a tough guy to bring down, has the speed to get down the field. He had a very small sample this past season as a true freshman, but he hauled in some pretty big plays on some go routes. So I think he's going to be a monster. I think he had like 16 broken tackles on 20 something receptions, 22 or something like that. I think he's going to be a monster in that offense. I think they have some pieces there.
All right. You have any more?
I mean, I probably do. But there's always at every position for every season, there are so many guys that I talk myself into loving, and then in hindsight, I'm like, you're probably making this a little bit too far. But those are guys I'm confident if I could buy stock in them, I would take my paycheck at PFF and just divvy it up between all those guys. I would not, spatter anything that I'm not confident in. Those guys, everyone I mentioned, I think they're going to have big years here.
All right, there you go. That is the list of top 10 returning receivers in the country per PFF / the Randy Moss guy, Anthony Treash. And that'll do it for this week. So next week, I guess we'll do running backs. Let's stick to the skill positions. And we
can do deep threats. We can do deep threats too. I mean,
just deep threats. All right, we can do that too. All right.
I was joking. I was joking.
Oh, I get it.
But I will give you a teaser on the running backs. That was the most difficult list that I've had to rank in college football. Now,
people already do not like it. So.
And it's understandable. I mean, we'll get into it. We'll get into it.
Exactly. All right. So we'll get into that next week. Top 10 top running backs returning in college football. That's it. I'm PFF Seth. That was PFF Tony. And we'll see you guys next week.